Ladies and gentlemen, the Alabama Senate will now come to order. Our prayer today will be delivered by Chaplain Washington Johnson. Chaplain Johnson is Director of Adventist Chaplaincy Ministries of the North American Division of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Chaplain Johnson is a guest of Senator Butler.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we come before you at the start of this legislative day in the Alabama State Senate, acknowledging your divine presence among us. We ask for your abundant blessings upon the leadership and all members of this chamber. Grant to them wisdom, clarity, and understanding in their deliberations, and guide their hearts and minds with sound judgment, compassion, and justice for the well-being of the people of Alabama. We also ask that you would watch over and protect the service members of our nation and their families. Keep them safe and strong in their service. Lord, we hold our hearts in vision as we look forward to that great day that the prophet Isaiah wrote about, when we shall beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. A day when you will make all things new, and a world where no earthly boundaries will separate us, and where the prophet Isaiah also said, the wolf and the lamb shall feed together. When we conclude this day and reflect privately, may we find satisfaction in knowing you have been with us, guiding our efforts and decisions. In faith, hope, and trust, we offer this prayer in the name of him that is eternal. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Today the pledge will be led by Ayanna Fanning of Lafayette. Ayanna attends Alabama School for the Deaf. William Burgess of Altoona. William attends Alabama School for the Blind. George Meyer of East Aboga. George attends Helen Keller School of Alabama.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. Great to have you all today. Secretary, call the roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shellnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 29 senators present, which is a quorum. The Senate is ready to transact business. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move that we excuse absent senators.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, move that we dispense with the reading of the journal from the previous legislative day and that we adopt said journal.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Now we move on to introduction of bills. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, move that we allow for the introduction of bills at any point throughout the day.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Move that we allow committee reports also to be allowed at any point throughout the day.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Gudger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that Alabama State Senate goes into recess to the call of the chair.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we stand in recess. Call the chair. All right, want to welcome y'all to the Alabama Senate. Senator Smitherman. Senator Smitherman, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Mr. President. Let me get everybody's attention. If you line up and face that way, turn around. Face. If you just turn around and face that way, because I know you all don't realize, but you're on TV. See that camera right there? So people can look back at home if they tune in to see you. Today let me get everybody's attention. Just 1 minute. Let me get your attention. Today we have the Parker High School Thunder and Herd Class 6A football team, and they are state champions. We have a resolution that I've provided for the team, and we're going to run the resolution back across the desk again. I want you to notice so all of y'all can be a part of it, and that one I'm going to actually frame and make sure that they're able to receive that. But today we are going to present a copy of this resolution to the principal and to the coach as well. But if you would read the resolution to the body and to the team.
Senate resolution commending the Arthur Harold Parker High School football team for winning the Alabama High School Athletic Association State 6A Championship title on December 6, 2024. Whereas highest congratulations are herein proudly presented to the Arthur Harold Parker High School varsity football team for winning the Alabama High School Athletic Association Class 6A State Championship title on December 6, 2024 at Protective Stadium in Birmingham, Alabama. Whereas for the first time in the school's storied 125-year history, the Thundering Herd football program is now known by a new title, State Champions. Through teamwork, diligence, and a commitment to excellence, the A.H. Parker High School football team gave an incredible performance and defeated Saraland High School 28-17. Whereas the A.H. Parker High School varsity football team's outstanding season was accomplished under the expert coaching and guidance provided by head coach Frank Warren and his coaching staff. Under their leadership, the players have broadened their knowledge of the game, refined their skills in execution, and developed a tradition of superior play and true sportsmanship. And whereas on a team full of exceptional athletes, defensive lineman Jordan Crawford excelled and earned game MVP honors with 6 total tackles, 5 unassisted, with 3 sacks and 4.5 tackles for a loss. Other notable standouts were Naeem Alford, who led the Thundering Herd offense with 98 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 carries, and quarterback Dylan Reese, who completed 6 of 11 passes for 74 yards. Whereas the A.H. Parker High School Thundering Herd's noteworthy success is a tremendous source of pride for their families, classmates, and the entire community, whose dedication and support have played a crucial role in motivating the team. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that the Arthur Harold Parker High School varsity football state championship team is highly congratulated, and we hereby dedicate this resolution to the team members, coaches, and fans with utmost admiration and along with sincere best wishes for continued success in all future endeavors.
At this time, Mr. President, if it's so permissible, I'd like for the principal, the coach, and maybe one of the players to have a brief word to say.
Yeah, that'd be great. Also like to, before we do that, I know there's some team members in the gallery. If y'all could please stand, we'd like to recognize y'all as well, and coaches. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, absolutely. Whoever you want to recognize first.
Yes.
To Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth, Senate Pro Tem Gudger, Senator Smitherman, and the entire Jefferson County delegation, and all of the senators, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It gives me great honor and privilege to present the state 6A football champions. We're so honored that you would take time away from your session to honor such a fine group of young men. 81 players on this championship team, and 23 have a cumulative GPA of 3.5 or higher. So not only do they take care of business on the field, but they take care of business in the classroom, and they are a true epitome of what a scholar athlete should be. And I stand so honored to serve as their principal, as the 10th principal of the historic Arthur Harold Parker High School, the mother school in Birmingham City Schools, that they made history out of 125 years of existence. We have never won a state football championship, and we've had some great athletes come through A.H. Parker High School, so it's truly remarkable for what these young men have achieved. And once again, we thank Senator Smitherman and all of the senators for taking time out of your session to recognize such a fine and deserving group of football players.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be in the House of Senate right now. As a kid growing up, learning about the system and being in the House right now, never thought I would be in. It's a blessing to coach these young men and be coached with my coach beside them and lead them to a victory. It's an honor to be here and make history, and I let people know we'll be back. Go Herd.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We just want to say we appreciate y'all for welcoming us in today, and we really appreciate it. It's been an honor playing on this football team with all these players, my teammates. They've been going through a lot the whole season, and we just want to say thank you for having us today. Thank you.
Governor, I don't know if anybody else have anything they'd like to say, but if they would, this may be appropriate time for any of my colleagues.
Yeah, Senator Gudger, the pro tem, also played college football.
I did. Thank you very much for recognizing me there, Mr. President. Gentlemen, I'm proud of you. What you just went through and what you achieved is something you're going to remember the rest of your life. And as you get older, like I am now, and looking back on life, the things that happened to you and what you had to overcome, the adversity that you had to overcome, the late night drills, lifting weights, working as a team is something that you're never going to be able to forget because you've won, right? You've done that job. But God's given each and every one of you attributes that make you special. So the guys on your left, the guys on your right, and all the team members that are up in here, you have something that God gave you that didn't give anybody else on your left or right. He gave it to you. And when you use your attributes to the best of your ability and you work with other people that have the same goal in mind, you accomplish things that you can't accomplish on your own. So just remember, you did this as a team, but individually, you can continue to do this throughout the rest of your life. So I just wanted you to know from the Alabama State Senate, we're very, very proud of you, and thank you for representing Alabama the way you should be, and you look beautiful today in all these shirts. So go Herd, is that what I say? Yeah. Go Herd, here we go. Watch the word. Watch the word. There we go.
All right, Senator Coleman Madison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to say congratulations to the Parker High School Thundering Herd and the Parker High School family, because there's a family that follows you all everywhere you go. But understand, you all represent the state of Alabama. You don't just represent Jefferson County. When you stand here in this well, you represent the entire state of Alabama. We are very proud of you. We expect great things from you. We want you to use that talent and come back home, be an example for those who come behind you. Thank you so much.
Mr. President.
Senator Chastain.
Mr. President, may I be recognized?
You're recognized.
Gentlemen, I'm speaking as an old football coach, okay? And I emphasize old, but let me tell you something. It's an incredible accomplishment what you've done. There's only one of those each year that goes out in each classification. And it didn't start in August, did it? It started in January, didn't it? Lifting weights, running, working out, commitment, and believing in each other. You know, nobody does. Football is, what I love about football is it's the ultimate team sport. 10 people can do their assignment, correct? 10 people can do it right. One that misses, what happens? It ain't gonna happen, is it? It takes all 11 committed on every play, offense, defense, special teams. So I just want to sit here today and tell you that if I could load you up and take you back to South Alabama, I might come back out of retirement and have a pretty good football team. But congratulations to you all, coaches as well. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you so much. So I am State Senator Marika Coleman from the other side of Jefferson County. I'm over there with Pleasant Grove, Fairfield, Hueytown, Bessemer. But I want to tell you how proud I am of each and every one of you, because I know what Parker High School creates. So my colleagues know that I actually lost my husband in 2020. He is a 1991 graduate of the Parker High School. So again, I know the stock that you all come from. So let this just be one of many of the accolades that you will have throughout your lifetime. Again, congratulations to each and every one of you, and we are very proud of you all. Principal, continue growing these scholar athletes. So thank you all so much for this moment, and congratulations one more time to the Parker High School Thundering Herd.
Senator Smithman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And if there's no other persons that would like to speak at this time, in closing, we would like to take a picture if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I just wanted to say again that I'm very proud of you all, and I'm proud to say that I live in your school zone. This is my neighborhood school where I live, and I've had a chance to see all the things that you all have worked hard to do. So I just want to tell you, keep the mold going, and we're just so proud of you. Thank you very much at this time.
Yeah, and look, anybody like to get a picture, come on down. Let's give them a round of applause. Congratulations.
Hey, yeah, I know. Are you good? Man, good to see you. So Bobby and your friend. Bobby. You need to get up in the middle. Come on. Yes, sir.
Going in the back. I'm getting in the back. I'm gonna get in here with. All right, I guess we'll stand in it. Yeah, we better.
All right, Senate is back in session. Now move on to House messages. Before we do that, I want to recognize some other special guests in the gallery. We have the Alabama Peanut Producers Association. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to the Alabama Senate. All right, great to have y'all today. Also, two other guests, guest of Senator Elliott, Joel Sermon, Mark Kaiser, Alpha Baldwin County. If y'all could please stand. Welcome to Alabama Senate. All right, now move on to House messages.
Message from the Lieutenant Governor, Senate Confirmation number 131, appointing Thara G. Herring to the Alabama Family Trust Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 132, appointing Clarence Doggett to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 133, appointing Terry Sparks to the Alabama State Board of Public Accountancy, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 134, appointing Vivian Figures to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 135, appointing Loring White to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 136, appointing Cheryl Orange to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the Governor, Senate Confirmation number 137, appointing Gail Main to the Jacksonville State University Board of Trustees, is referred to the Committee on Confirmations. Message from the House. Mr. President, the House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 299 by Representative Easterbrook with notice and proof regarding Choctaw County is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 300 by Representative Easterbrook with notice and proof regarding Choctaw County is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. Carnes with notice and proof. System for Jefferson employees of Jefferson County is referred to the Committee on Local Legislation, Jefferson County. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has originated and passed the following House bill and ordered same sent forthwith to the Senate without engrossment. House Bill number 233 by Representative Baker regarding the crime of making a terrorist threat is referred to the Judiciary Committee. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk.
All right, concludes House message. Oh, I'm sorry, one more.
Good. Message from the House, Mr. President. The House of Representatives has amended as therein shown and as amended is passed the following Senate bill and returns same herewith to the Senate. Senate Bill number 116 relating to firearms. Signed, John Treadwell, Clerk.
Mr. President,
Senator Barfoot.
if I could, I see my colleague across the way, but I'd recommend a move to concur with the House amendment, and I know my colleague may have some questions or comments.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
I would just like for us to at least discuss what the House amendment was in terms of how far does it deviate from the bill.
Yeah, and I think there were two changes, and I'm going to try to find those specifically. One I know made that ban effective immediately instead of setting it off for a date in the future. And I believe the other change added parts instead of just pieces or parts. But let me, if you want to.
Which is parts of the switch.
Parts of the switch, that's
Gotcha.
correct.
Okay. Okay. I think we're okay with that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I don't think we've got a roll, do we? Okay, if you could call the long roll on that.
All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot.
Aye.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton.
Aye.
Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
24 ayes, 2 nays. The Senate concurs on Senate Bill 116. All right, and this concludes House messages. Is that right? All right. All right, now move on to committee reports. Secretary, call the first, or do you want to do, before we do that, Senator Chambliss?
Mr. President, I need to re-refer a bill from LL1 to state government.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, now move on to committee report.
House Bill number 44 has been re-referred to the Committee on State Government.
Committee reports. All right, Secretary, call the first committee.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation number 117, appointing Harry Hobbs to the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
Senator Weaver.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate confirm Harry Hobbs to the Alabama Commission on Higher Education. Do we have a previous role? Used in previous role?
All right. Any objection to using previous role? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
(26 ayes, 0 nays). Harry Hobbs confirmed. Secretary, call next confirmation.
From the Committee on Confirmation, Senate Confirmation number 116, appointing Doug Ragland to the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, receives a favorable report by a vote of 15 ayes and 0 nays.
I move that the Senate confirms Doug Ragland to the Alabama Commission on Higher Education, used in previous role. No objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
(27 ayes, 0 nays). Doug Ragland confirmed. Secretary.
Thank you.
Is that it? All right. Secretary, call next committee.
From the Committee on County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 134 receives a favorable report by a vote of 8 ayes and 0 nays. From County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 217 receives a favorable report with 1 amendment by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays. Senate Bill 217. From County and Municipal Government, Senate Bill number 180 receives a favorable report with substitute by a vote of 6 ayes and 3 nays. From County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 157 receives a favorable report by a vote of 7 ayes and 2 nays. From County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 92 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays. From County and Municipal Government, House Bill number 335 receives a favorable report by a vote of 9 ayes and 0 nays.
These bills received a second reading and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. Secretary, call the next committee.
From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 219 receives a favorable report. From the Committee on Local Legislation, Senate Bill number 220 receives a favorable report. From the Committee on Local Legislation, House Bill number 213 receives a favorable report.
All right, these bills received a second reading and be placed on the calendar for next legislative day. This concludes committee reports. Now move on to motions or resolutions. Any motions or resolutions? Anyone? You got a motion or a resolution? Got a resolution? Point of personal privilege? Senator Singleton, will you allow him to take the mic, please? All right, Senator Stewart.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you, Mr. President, for the recognition. Just wanted to share, over the weekend, we had some deadly storms that ravaged our communities. I had 2 constituents to have an untimely passing because of the disastrous storms this past weekend. So I'm asking for a moment of silence. I'm asking for a moment of silence for all of the storm victims and their families.
All right, yeah, join us in a moment of silence, please. Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. We're continuing in prayer for their families and communities.
Absolutely. Thank you, Senator. All right, any other motions or resolutions?
Mr. President.
Senator Jones.
I have a resolution asked to be sent to rules.
All right, Secretary, send to rules, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have a resolution from rules.
All right, hold on 1 second. He's going to.
Senate Joint Resolution number 38 by Senators Jones and Coleman Madison commending Taiwan for its relations with the United States and the state of Alabama is referred to the Committee on Rules.
Senator Wagner.
Mr. President, I have a resolution from rules.
Secretary read and receive the resolution from rules.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 84, recognizing the month of April as Alabama Native Plant Month, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
I have a resolution from rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the resolution.
From the Committee on Rules, House Joint Resolution number 63, proclaiming February 25th, 2025 as Space Day, receives a favorable report.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of the resolution.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. All right, any other motions or resolutions? All right, Senator Wagner.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Have a report from the Committee on Rules.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the report from the Committee on Rules.
From the Committee on Rules, Senate Resolution number 39, Special Order Calendar. Be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that immediately upon the adoption of this resolution, the following business in the order set forth below shall be the special and paramount order of business for the 14th legislative day, taking precedence over the regular order of business or any pending or unfinished business. On page 16, House Bill 243 by Representatives Witt and Sellers regarding ad valorem and construction. On page 17, Senate Bill 177 by Senators Bell and others regarding the Alabama Film Office. On page 11, House Bill number 93 by Senator Figures regarding the Alabama State Port Authority. On page 12, Senate Bill 156 by Senator Barfoot regarding sentencing. On page 8, Senate Bill 142 by Senator Kitchens regarding voting. On page 33, House Bill 141 by Representative Hassel regarding state employees. On page 52, Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Jones regarding drug courts. On page 37, House Bill 159 by Representative Lovern regarding the Alabama Space Science Exhibit Commission. On page 12, Senate Bill 106 by Senator Smitherman and others regarding estates. On page 14, Senate Bill 133 by Senator Sessions regarding juvenile court. On page 9, Senate Bill 158 by Senator Barfoot regarding driver's licenses.
Mr. President.
Senator Wagner.
Move adoption of the report from the Committee on Rules.
Using short roll?
Short roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. The special order calendar is adopted. Secretary, call the first bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, House Bill number 243 by Representatives Witt and Sellers regarding ad valorem and construction-related transaction taxes. BR pending.
I'm sorry, Senator Weaver.
So House Bill 243 is a bill, I'd call it a bipartisan bill that's good for Alabama. It's from the Department of Commerce. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to request that we move the BIR using previous rule and no objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
$27 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 16 of the calendar, House Bill number 243 by Representatives Witt and Sellers regarding taxation and revenue.
So this bill,
Senator Weaver.
This bill creates the Alabama Development Fund, and upon developing a very creative and out-of-the-box funding mechanisms, no new taxes will not have any effect on the general fund. We'll be collecting a small portion of these abated taxes for future projects and these proceeds in this fund. And at the appropriate time, I'd like to move for passage using previous rule, no objection.
Any objection?
Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
I just want to say I think that this is a great bill. It's a great tool in the toolbox for economic development across the state. As we see industry coming in and we're always abating taxes, this is a revenue kind of neutral kind of bill that doesn't take anything away from the general fund or education bill on any abatement of any taxes. This way, companies come in and say, hey, we appreciate you, the state of Alabama, for allowing us to come into your state and being good corporate citizens, and they're willing to pitch in just to be able to continue to get a good product from this state. So thank you for bringing this bill, and I think it's a great bill for the state of Alabama.
Thank you for your comments, and I agree. I think it's great for Alabama. Yeah, so made the motion that we previous rule, no objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 243 passes. Thank you, Senator Weaver. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 17 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 177 by Senators Bell and others regarding the Alabama Film Office. BR pending.
Mr. President.
Senator Bell.
We carried over to call of the chair for just a few minutes to work with Senator Orr on something.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 177 is carried over to call of the chair. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 11 of the calendar, House Bill number 93 by Representative Brown regarding the Alabama State Port Authority. BR pending.
All right, Senator Sessions.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'm carrying this. Senator Figures had a doctor's appointment and asked me if I would carry this. The state port sits in her physical district. This is a bipartisan bill. It's just some accounting cleanup for the port, kind of puts them in along with the universities. And with that, I would move the BIR using previous rule without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
27 ayes, 0 nays. The BIR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 11 of the calendar, House Bill number 93 by Representative Brown regarding the Alabama State Port Authority.
Senator Sessions.
Yeah, Mr. President, the port currently tracks all of its property valued at $500 or more at the time of purchase, and there's no consideration for if it's depreciated out and has no value. They're still having to track all this property, and due to the size of the port and the vast amount of property that's owned down there, it's a very cumbersome, time-consuming process to track every item that's valued at that. So, while the port's property manager is responsible for tracking that and many other things, they feel like that they would like to be more in line with the universities and be able to have a higher threshold, and they would still be audited, and they would come under the public examiner's office, and it just like I said, it kind of line them up the way the universities are operating, and it make it a whole lot easier on their accounting and bookkeeping, and just make it a much smoother process for them to work. And if there's any questions from the body about this piece of legislation, all right, at this time, then I would move to pass.
Would you like to use previous roll?
House bill using previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
$28 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 93 passes. Thanks, Senator Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. President, body.
All right, Secretary.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 156 by Senator Barfoot regarding sentencing. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Barfoot.
Mr. President, move for adoption of the BIR using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
$27 ayes, 1 nay. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 156 by Senator Barfoot regarding sentencing.
Mr. President, I've got an adoption I'd like to offer. Motion to amend.
Amendment. All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 156 by Senator Barfoot. Replace line 30 on page 2 with the following. Replace line 61 through 62 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 66 on page 3 with the following. Replace line 69 through 74 on page 3 with the following. Replace lines 76 through 77 on page 3 with the following. Replace lines 80 through 81 on page 3 with the following. Replace lines 84 through 85 on page 3 and 4 with the following. 3 through 4 with the following. Replace line 95 on page 4 with the following. Replace line 98 on page 4 with the following. Replace lines 118 through 119 on page 5 with the following. Replace line 126 through 127 on page 5 with the following. Replace line 135 on page 5 with the following. Replace lines 140 through 141 on page 5 through 6 with the following. Replace line 161 on page 6 with the following.
Okay.
Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. So let me explain, members, let me explain what the bill does, and then in general form, what the amendments, how the amendments fold into the bill. Under existing law, an individual who has certain prior felony convictions may be given an enhanced sentence based on his or her prior felony convictions. As many of you knew, I do know that under the Habitual Offender Sentencing Act, there were somewhere around 150 to 200 individuals who were sentenced before 2000 who to life without the possibility of parole, that if that same crime occurred today would not have that same sentence. So in essence, what SB 156 does is allows an opportunity for those individuals who are in prison serving sentences of life without the possibility of parole to petition the court to be resentenced. Now, it's important to note that that those individuals must have already served 25 years plus years at least of their sentence. They may also, in the motion that they file with the court or the petition that they file in the court, there is a time limit of 5 years. So it's not an indefinite period. There's an indefinite number of individuals who meet the qualifications, but there's also a specific time period for which they have to file a petition. And then also, you would also have the ability to, the victim, if there is a victim, to come back and oppose that. Again, these are sentences where it's not a crime of violence as the underlying offense, or anything in their past with a crime of violence, or there will not be any physical injury to a victim in this case. The the district attorney would have the opportunity to be heard on any motion that's filed, and as I said earlier, the victim would also have an opportunity. The amendment here basically is some language that we've worked with the victims' rights group for notification to victims, and I think it's well suited, and I think we certainly have worked with the advocates for this. If you remember, I believe the governor actually talked about this in her State of the State speech, and so there's been some collaboration to get to this point to have those folks have those petitions heard. And I see my colleague across the way. I do have the motion to adopt the amendment.
Question on the amendment before amendment is adopted.
Yes, sir. Do you mind if I recognize some guests in the gallery before
Yes,
you
please.
do that? Okay, I'd like to recognize a guest of Senator Orr, the Decatur and Morgan County Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Alabama Senate.
Yes. I'm for victim notification, but what I don't want us to get into a lot of times what we see before parole boards is it being tried all over again. If we're talking about second chances, giving a person a second chance, I just want to make sure that this amendment to what you're bringing now doesn't give the victims a whole power to hold that person in without having due process.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, and I think we talked about it in committee, I think there's a range of somewhere around 150 to 200 individuals who are currently in DOC custody on a life without the possibility of parole sentence.
Correct.
And this would just enable those individuals not to get out, but to simply file a petition asking the court to review their case. Again, they've already spent at least 25 years because you had to be sentenced before 2020. So they've spent at least 25 years in there. And this victim notification, which I support wholeheartedly, just allows the victim to know, again, there's only 150 to 200 potential cases out there. Not all of those individuals will even file a petition, maybe. I mean, they should, but they might not. But it just allows any victim of that crime, which, by the way, can't be a crime of violence or any offense where an individual was physically harmed. So I suspect that the number of victims who might show up at a hearing will be minuscule, but we want to give them that opportunity. So there's just a victim notification part in there. As to whether or not they get to decide, the judge ultimately gets to decide whether or not that petition is granted. They hear from the DA, they hear from the individual who's been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, who's filed this petition, and they also get a chance to hear from the victim if one shows up.
Well, I'm for that. And again, my only problem was sometimes I hear parole hearings and we retry the case all over again 25 years ago. And we're talking about a different person that is sitting there today. But I'm fine with the amendment. I just want to make sure of what the amendment did and didn't give a lot of power to groups to keep folks from being able to move forward.
Just by and large, notifying them that individual has filed a petition to be heard, and then it's up to that victim, if there is one who's still alive and wants to come.
And I think they should be notified.
Yep.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
We've talked about the amendment a little bit. If I have no other opposition, that I'd ask for adoption of the amendment using previous roll.
All right. Call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Aye. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot.
Aye.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
(28 ayes, 2 nays). The Barfoot amendment is adopted. Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleague across the way may have some questions on the bill as amended.
Senator Albritton, you're recognized.
Thank you. As I understand this bill, what we're doing is we're taking those people that have been convicted, sentenced, gone through the appellate process, several levels, and they were sentenced at the time under the existing law, meaning that they were sentenced to life with no possibility of parole, meaning that the parole board has no jurisdiction at all in this for those sentences, for those individuals, correct?
That is correct.
And now what this bill does basically is create a procedure so that parole may be offered in the form of a resentencing. Is that an accurate?
The resentencing aspect is true, although I will correct you on one thing. I suspect most of these individuals had gone through a process of appeal, but it's not necessarily that they did. So,
Okay, but we don't know how much or if the appellate process looked at what level or anything. That I'll give you that. But they've had the time frame to do and go through. That's been the availability to them.
That's correct.
So now we're asking that if the individuals themselves, petition the original court where they were convicted. Is that correct?
That's correct. To be heard by that same judge or the presiding circuit judge or a judge that's in the sentencing judge's stead.
Exactly. A judge now that is present there in that same jurisdiction. To have the opportunity to hear the case, to provide a hearing on the basis of a potential new sentence, correct?
That's correct.
Under current law or under existing law?
Well, current and existing being synonymous, I'd say either or.
Either or?
You mean existing, prior existing?
Yeah, well, at the
law?
time he was originally convicted, under that, the law sentencing at that point, or does he use the guidelines present?
You would use the sentencing structure that's available now because at that time, remember all of these were before 2000, the only sentence that a judge could have given in those cases is life without the possibility of parole previously. So
correct.
It would be sentencing under the guidelines or standards today, which by the way, may mean that even if the judge hears the petition and decides to resentence them, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily getting out. They would just have the possibility of that.
Correct. So it's potentially that the judge would have the option basically to give a resentence so that that individual may have an opportunity to come up for parole at some future date.
True, that is a one thing that could happen. The judge could say, I hear your petition, but I am not going to change any of the sentencing that's out there and keep them in the same position they find themselves, life without the possibility of parole.
Basically uphold this previous sentence and not make any change.
Yes.
Or at that point also, if he changes the sentence, he could declare a split sentence or something along that, give him time served and free him up at that point, correct?
That's true.
Okay, a lot of latitude there.
That's true.
Okay, and it'd be up to that judge and that judge alone.
That's correct. I want to make sure that we understand though, there's input from the district attorney there. If they oppose it, they can
new sentence of, let's say, 5 additional years from the point or something. Does that open up a means for an appeal on that hearing or on the basis of conviction? For instance, if there is evidence that comes into this new hearing that conflicts with testimony given 20, 25 years ago, does that open up an appellate process from that?
I don't know that the bill specifically says one way or another. I would suggest to you that this is not an evidentiary hearing. This is just about the underlying case or the underlying facts of the case. Rather, it is a petition to ask the judge to reconsider based on the sentencing structure that we have at hand, for which they would not be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole now.
My concern here is that we have we're opening up for more costs on doing the same thing all over again, possibly, depending on how much they've gone through appellate process. That's one thing I want to avoid. I don't know that we can do that, but that's kind of where I am. The only way to avoid that cost would basically, in my mind, would be to give him a sentence that would be, give him a release date or something on that line. I've got some concerns, but I think I've voiced what I think my concerns are on that. I understand what we're trying to accomplish here. You're mentioning 200 or so. We don't really know how many there are. The only other concern I got is the courts. We are trying to keep, and we're establishing new courts already, and more are needed, and yet we're going to put this additional petition that's in there that we haven't had. So I have a concern about that too.
Yeah, and I certainly understand your concerns. I would just say that is those concerns I think are mitigated from the standpoint that of the number of individuals who might qualify The estimates have been somewhere around 150 to 200, number one. Number two, I can't imagine somebody wouldn't take advantage of that, but there may be individuals who do not take advantage of that. And I've just gotten a text that shouldn't be an appeal. There's nowhere in the legislation where it's contemplated that there would be an appeal for this petition. And I guess, you know, the opportunity that those inmates have, current inmates have, to come and tell the court what they've done while the 25 plus years that they've been in there on a nonviolent, no physical injury type of a case, I think would be beneficial.
Look, lawyers are creative. They are very creative. And if I were representing someone like this and had the opportunity to possibly open that up, I think there would be some creative ways to get the testimony in to try and make that work. But anyway, I've done my questions. Thank you for your time and patience.
Are you saying to me that lawyers are superfluous, that they've add on a lot of things that really might not matter?
I would suggest that lawyers are scraping to make a living on matters, yes.
Understand.
Thank you.
Well said, lawyer.
Mr. President.
Yield to my colleague for dialogue.
All right, sure.
Thank you. Senator Barfoot, I have just a couple of questions. One, how will the inmate be notified? You know, I brought this up in committee and we were going to address it when it got to the floor, I think. How will the inmate be notified that this appeal route is available to them?
Yeah, great question. And we did have this in committee. I think they should be notified. We should want individuals who are sitting in DOC custody on a life without the possibility of parole for a nonviolent offense, for an offense that caused no physical injury to anyone, to know that we've changed the law in the state of Alabama. Quite honestly, and I'm going to go through here while we continue to talk and maybe see if I can find an answer to that. I'm not sure whether or not in that amendment, whether or not it addresses that. I'll be glad to continue that discussion for just a second.
My question, you know, obviously if you've been in prison for 25 years, you know, the news that this law has been changed, I can certainly see obstacles to get that information getting to you.
Right.
And I know you said 150-something people that it applies to.
That's an estimate, 150 to maybe 200 or so.
Yeah, so, you know, it's not a lot of people to notify, but I think the Department of Corrections ought to certainly be required to notify them that there's a new course available to you. If we're looking at nonviolent offenders and reducing the prison census, that's one way to do it by a small number, but still every bit counts. Number two, question related to that too, is so they're notified that this route is available to them. Are they furnished with legal counsel to file that motion in the court? Once again, if you've been sitting in prison 25 years, you probably don't have the ability at your disposal to be filing court motions.
Yeah, second great question you've got, Dr. Stutz. The individuals who are in there probably, like you said, most by and large don't realize when we pass this law, but to the extent they do, there's a lot of handwritten motions and petitions that come from DOC, individuals in DOC, I think would satisfy that requirement. We didn't contemplate, certainly an appointed counsel for any of those individuals. I do believe, though, that is a possibility, that if there is a handwritten request for a hearing or a petition filed by one of those DOC inmates, certainly they have an opportunity to hire legal counsel on their own. The court, I think it's void about appointing someone, but I think the court could appoint someone.
So I'm not sure I completely understood your answer. So
I don't think there's any language in there that says that the court will appoint or will not appoint. I think it's void on that.
Yeah. Are you getting an answer on your text there?
Right, I'm trying to look myself and got a request out.
Yeah.
So be glad to continue dialogue until we get an answer to that.
Well, I think we have some other people here wanting to dialogue on it too while you're waiting on the answer, but I just wanted to make the point, I think that's an ongoing concern that you're making this available to them, but unless somebody is required to notify them that it's available and help them with the process, it's really a moot point because of that 150. I doubt very few, if any, would ever be able to exercise that option.
You'd be in favor then of an amendment to clarify that pardons and paroles or DOC would have to notify those individuals who have been tagged as being potentially eligible to file a petition under this bill then?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Sessions.
Mr. President. Senator, just a clarification. I hadn't gotten a whole lot of feedback one way or the other on your legislation until today. And now I was planning on supporting you because I do believe people deserve a second chance. But I just want to make sure that your legislation states that these has to be nonviolent. They cannot be violent offenders.
Let me read to you, if I could, just out of the bill itself. On or after October 1st, 2025, an individual serving a sentence in the custody of the Department of Corrections may file a motion for a reduction in that sentence if the individual satisfies all of the following. Number one, the individual is serving a sentence pursuant to 13A59 for any offense other than homicide, a sex offense, attempted murder, an offense that caused serious physical injury or injury to another individual, and it lists the code sections. Number two, the individual is serving a life without the possibility of parole. Number three, the individual received a final sentence at the trial court prior to May 26th of 2000, so we're talking about 25 years that they've been in. The individual has no prior convictions for any of those offenses that I named out in subsection 1. The individual shall file a motion for a reduction in sentence in the criminal division of the circuit court in the county for which the individual is convicted. The motion shall be heard by the original sentencing judge or his or her successor, the presiding judge of the circuit, or the retired judge as assigned by the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. It goes on, but those are the restrictions for who might be available, serve 25 or more years because they've been sentenced prior to May 26 of 2000, no prior convictions of any of those heinous offenses that I listed in paragraph number 1, and also they have to be an individual who is serving a life without the possibility of parole.
And now I'm not an attorney, so
I play one on TV every now and then.
I trust your I trust you are gonna tell me the truth on this one. And as far as you're concerned, anyone that would be eligible is a nonviolent offender.
Yes, as classified by the code sections that I referenced. Yes. I might also add, I think there's probably some other comments. I'd like also to add a host of individuals and entities who have sent letters of support. And it's kind of one of those situations where sometimes you have would have two opposite, diametrically opposed political sides sometimes who have come together and in support of a bill. And I point to a couple of the Alabama Policy Institute, a letter that I've received where they are, Second Chance Act creates a legal pathway for judges to review cases of individuals who were sentenced to life without parole for crimes that involve no physical injury, who were sentenced prior to May 26 of 2000 and already served a minimum of 25 years. We note that SB 156 does not result in the automatic release of even one incarcerated person, but does allow for a narrow list of aging individuals the possibility to have their cases reviewed. In addition, the legislation has a 5-year sunset provision and creates a specific victim notification process for all cases that are reviewed. The Alabama Policy Institute appreciates the renewed focus on public safety by the Alabama legislature and Governor Ivey. We commend Governor Ivey and Senator Will Barfoot on their work regarding the Second Chance Act. API agrees that Alabama leaders must both be tough and smart when it comes to addressing crime. I won't continue to read everything that I've got here, but Americans for Prosperity sent out a message in support of that. Faith and Freedom Coalition, supportive of that. Christian Coalition, supportive of that. And then former Congressman Spencer Bacchus. I could go on, but I see my colleague across the way. Glad to entertain any comments or questions he has, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator Elliott.
Thank you, sir. Senator, I have a couple of quick questions, and I've read your bill thoroughly. I've been real studious this session about making sure I read things thoroughly. Is the individuals, well, first of all, just so everybody knows, we're talking about the Habitual Felony Offender Act, right?
That's correct. The individuals were sentenced prior to 2000 on the Alabama Habitual Offender Act.
Okay. In the eligibility for resentencing, is the prison record considered? And I understand it may be during sentencing, but the eligibility for resentencing is the prison record considered?
Okay.
Or is this a blanket, everybody gets it?
It is a blanket under those conditions that you are doing life without the possibility of parole, and you are in there on life without the possibility of parole, and it is not a violent offense or an offense that caused physical harm to someone, and you've served at least 25 years, and there's a 5-year sunset, so it's not in perpetuity.
I understand. We've done something similar to this before with my objections, but there's some differences for sure. Is there supervision when these folks are resentenced? So they're currently in prison. They have been sentenced to life without parole. If they go back through this resentencing, is there an automatic supervision for these folks automatically?
No, there's not, because there's not an automatic get out of jail free card. In other words, one of these 150 to 200 individuals that have spent 25 plus years of their life inside DOC on a habitual offender type case, that they would not be there now on if sentenced under the guidelines that we have now, is merely a petition. So there is no definitive answer that they will actually get out or that their sentence will be reduced. This is merely a petition. Now, if the court said we are going to reduce that to something other than life without parole, it would be within the purview of that sentencing judge or the judge who's hearing that petition to put those qualifications on there. They could say, hey, you're going to spend another 10 years in, you're going to spend another 5 years, you're going to spend another 30 years. I'm not going to change the sentence, or if I change the sentence, here's what it's going to be, and here are the qualifications, i.e. probation, if they.
But the original judge wouldn't have put any sentencing wouldn't have put any supervision requirements on them because he put them in life in jail for life, right?
Yeah. And in those cases, he put them in jail for life without the possibility of parole because the guidelines the statute call for that and only that.
I have one more question.
Sure.
What if these folks reoffend? Is there an automatic, and we've done this in certain other instances, is there an automatic, we've let you out early and you've reoffended, we put you in prison under the Habitual Felony Offender Act, and you have habitually felony offended again, is there an automatic go back to jail, or do we have to re-adjudicate this?
Well, a couple of things. Again, go back to what the judge does at that hearing, right? If the judge says, I am going to reduce your sentence to something other than life without the possibility of parole, and he puts that individual on probation, then the laws of the state of Alabama would apply. If they reoffended while that individual was on probation, the judge could revoke that probation, send them back to whatever sentence that he just gave them. They might, in fact, depending on the type of violation, if it wasn't a technical violation, catch a new charge. So yes.
But there's no automatic under this, that's something the judge in the second sentencing for the same crimes has to then put on. We don't do in order to be eligible for this resentencing, you can't reoffend. We have to, we are re-adjudicating, essentially. We are resentencing this, and then we would have to re-adjudicate again, but for the second time the judge went back through and put some stipulations on the sentence.
Again, I think your question hinges on the fact that you believe that everybody will get out. That's not, I don't believe that'll happen. I believe there will be some judges who say, thanks for your petition. I hear from the victim, if there is one after 25 plus years on a property type crime. I hear from you, I am not going to grant this. On those individuals that the judge may grant that petition, it doesn't mean that they're getting out right then. They could say, I am now going to resentence you to 35 years, by way of example, rather than life without, and that individual may go back into DOC custody to where he or she would serve out the remainder of that sentence, no different than if that individual were sentenced on day one in front of that judge.
I appreciate you answering my questions thoroughly as you usually do. I'm going to have a difference of opinion with you on this one, but I respect where you're coming from. And again, I appreciate the time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. President, seeing no other individuals who have any questions or comment, I'd move for passage of SB 156 using the long roll.
All right. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot.
Aye.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman-Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams. What did he do?
All right, 16 ayes, 16 nays. Senate Bill 156 fails. All right, Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar.
Page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill 142 by Senator Kitchens regarding voting. BR pending.
Senator Kitchens.
Thank you, Mr. President. SB 142, what this does, this codifies something that we already have in existing practice right now in the state, dealing with the Electronic Registration Information Center. Right now, we have only 24 states that use this system. This is a private institution that collects personal data on our constituents. So this just says that that is going to be something that we can't do in the future. And with that, I would move for the BIR using the long roll.
All right, motion for the long roll and the BIR. Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman-Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smitherman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
26 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 8 of the calendar, Senate Bill 142 by Senator Kitchens regarding voting.
Mr. President, I think we're going to have a little dialogue on this. Like I said, this bill, the premise behind this bill is to make sure that we're not sharing personal data with a private business. And again, right now we are able to share data through the state system that we have, the AVID system that's set up through the Secretary of State's office. We're able to share data with 48 states, and only 24 of them use the current ERIC system. So it's just really being able to protect our personal data for the constituents that we serve.
Mr. President.
Senator Singleton.
Well, let me just say this to you that I am just as concerned about free and fair elections and election security as anyone, okay? I believe in the right to vote. Have had people in my family who've been denied their right to vote. I've gone to the poll to where, as a candidate, my name didn't even end up on the ballot at the poll. My name was on the ballot, but I just wanted the poll, so I got to get somebody to sign for me to recognize who I am in order to vote, and I'm the candidate. What concerns me about this is that we're moving from a system that everybody now says was so bad, ERIC, which was the hottest thing that was going in the country prior to 2020. Then we had a national election in 2020 when somebody screamed Bloody Mary that everybody took the election from them, and every state that had ERIC, that was a red state, pulled it down. So that's what gives me cause here, and I want to kind of slow this down because I just don't want to do something that is political versus something that was best for our state or not. I hear them talk to me about this new system that they have. I don't know how it works. And right now it's only connected to, I was told 14, but you said something like 20 some odd states.
Well, we have MOUs right now currently with 8. Tennessee, Louisiana, all our surrounding states we have MOUs with.
Just the surrounding states.
But we also, through ALEA, we're able to share that data with 48 states. So there's a way to share the data with 48 states through ALEA.
And see, that's what scares me is that we're only locked in with 8 other states, but yeah, we can share the data. So I need to get to know a little bit more about where we are and where we're going. How easy that system could be to purge someone or to get someone off the voter roll, or how much more accessible is that versus the ERIC system. And so I just don't want to politicize this when people were okay with it prior to 2020 when somebody claimed that they didn't win, that they won an election was taken from them. And so while the bill may have a different kind of intent, I'll give you that. I don't say that this is your intent. I think you may see this as the right thing to do for the state of Alabama. I see it as possibly could be being politicized, maybe because that's the view I want to see from, the lenses I want to look at. Because it scares me that when it happened, and when the new Secretary of State came in, they immediately, this was one of the first things that they did, was to pull away from this system. And I'm like, I know you were a member here and a probate judge in the past, but to pull it that fast, and this was your first election going into it, so I just have some real issues about that, and I respectfully want to ask you to carry this over, and I want to be able to talk to the Secretary of State office a little bit more about the system that they have in place, what it does, how can I be assured of election security here, because I had bought into the ERIC system, I had bought into it, you know, that it was there and this is what we're doing. I had talked to the former Secretary of State who sit down and explained to me, because the day that this Secretary of State pulled it, that Secretary of State called me. Said, did you see what he just did? And so it bothered me at that time because we were taking ourselves out of a national system to become more local. And I think the elections, while elections are local, but the connectivity in which we are going now is becoming more global. And so I think that we gotta protect our systems, make sure our data is being protected, and understanding where it's going. Until now, I've never heard all of these problems that ERIC had. Until somebody want to explain this bill to me now, oh, it got 1 billion problems now. I never heard it before. But when you want to sell me to go and get rid of it, now you're telling me all these problems that you've had with it. All the way down to the point that somebody could have been making private money off of it. Most software is run by somebody private. 90% of the software that we use, open source or even whether it's a closed source, somebody privately is selling that to the state, therefore the states are now running it. So when you tell me that ERIC was run by a private company, that happens every day around here. We have private companies that run programs that have Social Security numbers and everything in it every day here at the state of Alabama. So I don't see a big difference in this unless somebody was telling me that there was some integrity problems in that system. And I'm just beginning to hear some integrity problem the day that we got it on the calendar. I have a problem with that. That's where I am today. It's not about whether or not you're bringing this bill or whether this bill is good for the state of Alabama. I need to know that it's better than what we had and where we're going to and what we're looking forward to. Because this Secretary of State will not always be the Secretary of State. Somebody else may come in the next couple of years and decide to do something totally different. But at least let's understand where we are going, what we're trying to achieve, and how do we secure our elections, which I think that Alabama has some of the most secured elections in the nation than any other states. So we keep tweaking it and tweaking it because of politics, not because we're unsecured, not because there's some integrity problem. We seem to be tweaking it because of politics. I have a problem with that. That's what I have a problem with. So at the proper time, and you may want to have something else to say, somebody else may want to ask some questions, but I will respectfully ask that we carry this bill over. If not, I'd like to start my first hour.
Well, and I appreciate your conversation, and you've had a conversation with me before we ever got into this position.
Yes.
You know, I do think there's some things about this that is really good. With this ERIC system, you know, we don't know where those servers are. We don't know where that data is being stored. With the Alabama system, we know that it's here in the state. We know that there's some security measures put in place on it. We have that in place. But I respect your conversations and look forward to talking with you more.
But this is what I didn't understand about that is that when they told me that same, you regurgitating exactly what they said to me. We don't know. If we're paying somebody, why don't we know? Why couldn't we have found out where it is to see whether or not it is safe? Because data doesn't stay in Alabama every night. Our data ships out of here and go to Atlanta to the internet too, a lot of time from our banks and other places. They're storing data all over the country. We don't have a whole lot of data storage in the state of Alabama. Our data is stored somewhere else all the time. Do we know where actually it all goes to? No, we don't. Data storage is a big industry now, and we don't have a whole lot of it here in Alabama in terms of us doing data storage. There's an Internet 2 pipeline that runs across Atlanta. It takes in most of all our data in the Southeast for most of these states. But where? Do we know? What servers? So when you start talking about you know what servers are and where they put it, that's just another scare tactic to me, because there are other agencies that deal with a lot more sensitive information that store their data somewhere else overnight in this state. That's not that argument don't win with me. Okay? So that's why I was trying to tell these gentlemen who were talking to me, all of a sudden you come in today and you give us all the doom and gloom about a system because this is something you want to get rid of. And then you want to bring in something that then none of us even know anything about. Because if this system that you have now is doing all this, when this bill was released, you could have said, hey, these are the problems that we're having with the other system. This is why we brought in the new system, because we can do A, B, C, D, E, F, and G that the other system was. Nobody tried to make those comparisons and say this was better for the state than that. All of a sudden now is, we don't know where the server is, da-da-da-da-da. That was scare tactic stuff to make you want to go on and, oh yeah, we need to get a hold of that. It's not out of control. It's not out of control. This is more fundamentally ego to get my system in versus somebody else's system. Now, there could have been a problem with the other system. But for those of us who have to sit here and make this decision today, a lot of these things weren't told us until now. We've had elections. We've had a couple of elections. We ain't had no problem in this state.
Well, and if I could, we've not used the ERIC system, though.
But we have used the ERIC system
in the past.
In the past and didn't have no problem. That's all I'm saying. We didn't have no problem under ERIC. We had no problems. So I just need to know more about what they got before I can give you what you want. That's all I'm asking.
Well, I appreciate that. And Mr. President, with that, I would move that we carry this over at the call of the chair.
All right, any objection?
I'm fine with that.
All right, hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 142 is carried over to call of the chair. All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 33 of the calendar, House Bill number 141, by Representative Hassel regarding state employees. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator, you're recognized.
thank you for the recognition. I'd like to move for adoption of the BIR using the previous roll without objection.
We got a good roll. We got a good one.
All right, any objection to using previous roll? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-seven ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 33 of the calendar, House Bill number 141 by Representative Hassel regarding state employees. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President,
Senator, you're recognized.
I do have a friendly amendment from the committee that I'd like to submit.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment. Oh, I'm sorry. We're on a committee amendment. Yeah, we need to adopt the committee amendment, assuming that's what you want to do.
That is it.
Okay. All right, do you want to use previous roll?
It's the same.
Okay. All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-eight ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment's adopted.
Okay, Mr. President.
Senator.
So this bill is a bill that I had in committee. It is a bill that amends Section 36, 14-3 of the Alabama Code to expand the list of allowable payroll deductions to state employees to certain financial instruments. If there are no questions, I see my colleague across the way. I'd like to move for final passage of HB 141, using the previous roll without objection.
You want the long roll? All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman-Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-six ayes, 4 nays. House Bill 141 passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, Senator Bell.
Mr. President,
Senator Bell.
ask you to call SB 177 back to.
All right, Secretary, call the bill, please.
On page 17 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 177 by Senator Bell regarding the Alabama Film Office. BIR pending.
Mr. President, motion not BIR.
All right, you going to use previous roll?
Previous roll.
Any objection? All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman-Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shillnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
(29 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention). The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 17 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 177 by Senator Bell and others regarding the Alabama Film Office.
Mr. President.
Senator Bell.
What this bill does, it changes the name of the Alabama Film Office to the Alabama Entertainment Office. It expands the qualified reduction to mean musical albums, because there's so many now musical albums produced. It establishes the from 20 million to 30 million spending threshold, 2 million annually for musical albums, and a 3 million rollover for incentives. And I know Senator Orr's got an amendment he wants to.
All right, Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had an amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed, receive the amendment, please.
They did it over there. All right. There you go. All right, I'll take a few minutes while they get the right one prepared. Let me tell you what the amendment does, since I know your curiosity has now been piqued. The amendment just puts on here a requirement for a study to be done by the Department of Revenue regarding the efficacy of the program, and we want to make sure that if we're giving these incentives, and this is a historical program, what is it, 30 years old now, the 90s? Yeah, so, but the request is, with this amendment, that the Department of Revenue, who's controlling the money, how many jobs are created, how much money have we given out, what the economic impact, if they can tell how much sales tax perhaps were created, and other matters, to maybe continue the program for in the years ahead. And I also, the bill, Senator, also has some additional components to it, and that it is going to be changing the name of the Film Commission, of course, adding music and changing some dollars. Are there some other things that the bill is going to do for us to make it bigger, better, faster in the years ahead?
I hope we can compete with Georgia a little bit, because we got a lot of Alabama people going to Georgia to produce films.
Well, they've spent, as you know, hundreds of millions. I think I read an article, I'd say it's over $1 billion. They got a lot of tax credits floating around out there that haven't been cashed in. And now the amendment fairy has brought me the corrected draft. So now the gatekeepers can be happy with the protocol here, that the nice little seal is at the top that they love so much.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill 177 by Senator Orr. Replace line 264 on page 10 with the following.
And it fits, I'm sure. So I'd move adoption of the amendment using the previous roll, Mr. President.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Senator Orr, amendment's adopted. All right, Senator Bell.
President, I'd like to yield to Senator Coleman.
All right, Senator Coleman.
Thank you so much for the recognition. I had teased the gentleman a little bit because I said I was waiting on my turn and he just got in front of me. He said he didn't know I was standing here waiting to talk, but I did want to just give a few accolades on this piece of legislation. I cannot even remember how many years ago it was, but I was sat right next to former Representative Earl Hilliard at the time. We actually served together for 8 years. And Earl Hilliard Jr., not senior, that served in Congress, but Jr. actually was a filmmaker. That's what he does for a living, one of, I guess, several of his jobs. But he was an actor, made films, and he actually brought this issue to us however many years ago, just about what we could do in the state of Alabama to get films to come here. We have wonderful infrastructure, we have beautiful landscapes, but yet we didn't have the incentives that we needed in order to lure the industry here. And I actually remember the day that it passed the House. If any of you all remember in the heat of the night, watching that, and Dr. Tommy Stewart, who was a professor at the time at the Alabama State University. She was present that day, the day that we actually passed that legislation. And what is the woman's name who was on The Help, but she's from Montgomery? Octavia Spencer. How could I not? I could not think of that. She wasn't present that day, but she was supportive of us passing some type of incentive package. Because again, Montgomery native in a blockbuster film, what a way to be able to serve homage to even your home state of being in supportive of something like this. So I'm glad that we're doing this and expanding. From my understanding, we're expanding in addition to film, other types of entertainment, bringing these large-scale entertainment in the state of Alabama. So I like when we do stuff like this. When we do nonpartisan or bipartisan, whichever way you want to, the terminology you want to use, that does great things for the state of Alabama. When we are trying to grow our economy, bring jobs into the state of Alabama, and look at the recognition that we could get here. And when we were in committee today, I think someone was saying that most of the movie Selma was not even filmed in Selma. It was in Georgia. And so think about if we have the right incentive package, what we could do. Tyler Perry did those big old studios over in Georgia. I know that comedian Cat Williams, whatever you think of him, I have seen him actually in concert. It is something to see, or I've seen him perform live. But I know that he has purchased Fort McClellan, I believe as well. So the more that we get that type of recognition and the incentives so folks can come here, the better for the people of the state of Alabama, the better for our economy. And I'm gonna encourage my brothers and sisters on the other side of the aisle to continue to do these types of legislation and not the stuff that is the red meat that does not put any money in the hands of Alabamians. Let's do more of what you're doing today. So I look forward to voting yes on this piece of legislation.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Bell.
Mr. President, motion to adopt final passage using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Oh, would you like to use, I'm sorry, what now?
There is a yes.
Okay. All right, so no objection to using previous roll? All right, hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
Ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 177 passes. Thank you, Senator Bell. All right, Secretary, call the next bill on the calendar, please.
On page 52 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Jones and others relating to drug courts. BR pending.
Mr. President, move adoption of the BR using the long roll. Using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, no nays. Did.
All right, 30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
Number 200 by Senator Jones and others relating to drug courts. Committee amendment pending.
Mr. President, I have a friendly amendment.
All right.
Sorry. We got a committee amendment, and I will move adoption of the committee amendment using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The committee amendment is adopted. All right, Senator Jones.
All right, I have another amendment. This is a friendly amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Jones. Replace lines 435 through 437 on page 16 with the following.
All right, so Senator Smithers, I know wanted to know what the amendment does, and I have some copies here.
Both of them. Both of them.
Both of them? Yes, sir. Let me start with the one in hand right now. So there were some language that mental health wanted in here about folks being certified by the department or that can provide documentation they're using evidence-based practices. And then there's some language at the bottom that the municipalities wanted that they can transfer some offenders for an accountability court to the that the state may accept the transfer of those offenders who have an identified substance abuse disorder or mental illness from any municipal court within its jurisdiction, which does not have its own municipal accountability court. So that's that amendment. And the committee amendment that we just adopted was a technical amendment. It changed, there was a misprint. Alabama Supreme Court should have been AOC for Administrative Office of the Courts.
You have any more amendments?
No, sir, that's it.
All right. Mr. President, I'd like to be recognized.
You're recognized.
All right. Why are we doing this with this bill? I mean, what is the advantages of doing what you are doing?
Yes, sir. So this bill has been worked on by Department of Mental Health, by the Chief Justice, Administrative Office of Courts.
Why?
Because we need to standardize the accountability court process here in the state. So right now, we have a hodgepodge around the state. Also, there are just basically what they call drug courts. There is no official mechanism statewide for veterans treatment courts and for veterans treatment courts and mental health courts. So this would allow a standardized process under the drug court statute for these other types of diversionary courts.
Well, I mean, why are we going to have to change the name, though? I mean, to do what you just said, why is it necessary to change it from drug court? And let me get a little closer to you when I ask you. I'm asking you why, but let me just tell you like this. I don't understand why there is a hodgepodge when the drug court was established and the process and the procedures were established at that time. So why aren't we telling these other courts, whether it be veteran courts or anybody else court, to follow the established standard? Why are we doing this when the standard worked? Drug court worked, and now it seems to me we're getting ready to alter the process to fit some of these other folks because that's the way that they want to do it. And this is a tried and true process of dealing with these situations. I mean, why is that necessary? Because I'm not convinced yet that that's necessary.
Well, to simply answer your question, Senator, it's because the drug courts are only applicable to drug offenders. So there's no other provision for a veterans treatment court, for a mental health treatment court. And so in discussions with this, in drafting this bill, the Administrative Office of Courts wanted to put everything under the drug court statute and that have everything defined as an accountability court, because that's the goal. We're holding folks accountable for what they've done, but we're also giving them a path toward rehabilitation.
I mean, but it already exists. Everything you just said without saying accountability court, everything already exists.
Just for drug offenders.
Well, why are we changing the name drug court? Why don't you establish for those people an accountability court? Why are we going to go tamper with drug court?
I think the thought
they deal with drugs, so why are we tampering with it so that they can do what they want to do? Why we can't have a separate statute to put all them folks over there that you just talked about, that's the veterans and whoever else over there and all them, and call them accountability court and leave drug court there. There's nothing wrong with having drug court. We got accountability court. We got circuit court, criminal court, domestic relations court, probate court. So why we can't do it that way?
I think it's a code issue in that they wanted everything in one section of code to refer back to. And so they wanted to broaden it just from, a drug court to deal with drug offenders to be able to, mental health is an important issue in this state. Folks have serious mental health issues. Veterans, they've seen and experienced a lot of things. So the thought was to be able to broaden that to include everything all in that one section and call them accountability courts, which many other states, to my knowledge, have done the same thing.
But we still can put it under the same section. You can have it, if it's section 31-2-50, then you can make this section 31-2-50, A is drug court, B is that court. It doesn't change. Everything you said, it can be done without changing the name drug court. I realize what you said about, mental illness and that thing and all that, and I'm all for that. My voting record speaks for itself. The speaker and I, we were co-sponsors in setting up the mental health coordinators in the school system. So, I'm committed to that. But I'm having a problem with us trying to merge drug court into all this other stuff. It has its own unique application, its own uniqueness. And now we are diminishing that uniqueness by trying to make it be a court that deals with mental illness and deals with veterans. And that's not what drug court was set up for.
So, Senator, drug court will still exist. It still can be called drug court. Drug court will just be a type of accountability court. So everything you're wanting still is in there. There's just an umbrella that all these accountability courts will be under, and drug courts will still be one of them. And you can still call it drug court if you wish.
But wouldn't they still be under it if they're still in that same section? That doesn't change them from being under it. And we're not trying to change the authority. If you want it, I don't know, to the Commission of Mental Health, we wanted her over those because we wanted a central person over it. That's fine too. But I have a concern though with changing, merging drug court into those courts when it has its own uniqueness and its own specific mission. Now, I tell you why you see me speak so strong about that. It's because I was the clerk for Judge Pete Johnson when drug court was created. I did plenty of the leg work in creating drug court, working under Judge Pete Johnson. So that's why I'm talking like I'm talking. I know what it was for. You see what I'm saying? It ain't about an application. And let me tell you something. I'm going to help you out about that. I already got my little stuff about it. I can read you about Judge Johnson. Mm-hmm. It says Birmingham, Alabama, Retired Jefferson County District Judge O.L. Pete Johnson. This was back in 2006. It's when it was created. It was saying that next Wednesday will again take the bench to preside over special criminal cases in a courtroom at the Mel Bailey Criminal Justice Center in downtown Birmingham. The courtroom decorations, Johnson's yellow 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldier banner, a Marine Corps poster, and the prints of a Vietnam village scene are a clue to the special cases that will come before him. He will preside over the new Veterans Drug Treatment Court in Birmingham Division of Jefferson County. That was already, that's what it is. It's no, this was in 2006, a program to help veterans get out of and stay out of trouble with the law. We owe them, Johnson simply said when asked why a special drug court for veterans. Under that program, an honorary discharged veteran who has an addiction, mental problem, or both, and who has a minor criminal case pending in either district or circuit court can have that case transferred to the Veterans Court. Veterans in trouble with the law must apply to be in the program. Once in the program, the veterans are to participate in counseling and treatment through the Veterans Administration Hospital in Birmingham. The defendants also would have to appear for court review at least 2 Wednesdays a month before Johnson and submit to random urine analysis. Eventually, the veterans could see their case dismissed if they successfully completed the program. Cases eligible include many misdemeanor crimes, Class C felons except sex crimes, probation revocations where drugs are a problem, and Class B felons except violent offenses or sex crimes, according to a list from Johnson. Johnson said they will use every treatment program the VA has available for those veterans with addictions who would qualify for VA benefits. Now, let's see. Okay, Johnson, who served from 1984 to 2006 as a district court judge in Jefferson County, formed the Jefferson County Drug Court in 1996. See, my point I'm making is that the founder of it saw the need to have a separate and distinct Veterans Court. He didn't mold it into the court that he had established in 96. Now we talking about molding this stuff back in. That's not why it was set up like that. Veterans are unique people, and they have to have a unique attention. And now if we're gonna put all of them in the same bucket, then that diminishes that. So my suggestion is, why don't we put all your other folks over there in your accountability, if that's what you want to do, but leave drug court where it is?
Well, Senator, I mean, I guess when this bill's been being discussed 2 years ago, 2 years ago when it first came up, the thought was at the time that they wanted it all under one umbrella.
I don't think anybody discussed that with me to that extent. So, I mean, don't hold me accountable because y'all been talking about it 2 years, and now I bring up an issue because, I mean, nobody has talked to me about it until I saw it today. This part right here, today. So I got a problem with that part of it. I'm just gonna tell you, I have a problem with that. Why don't we dissect the drug court itself out and set up under the name that you want, accountability court, put all the rest of them over there in accountability court.
So are you saying, Senator, that a drug court is not an accountability court? That's what I think I hear you saying. Because I think it is.
If that's the case, you have failed to look thoroughly in the Webster Dictionary, because in the dictionary, they have about 8 definitions. You picked out the wrong one, because that ain't what I'm saying. So you got 6 more to pick out to say what I'm saying. And if it is, no, my thing doesn't go to, let me say this, Senator. Every time we talk about those things, or we talk about the people with mental illness, whatnot like that, that distracts from the point I'm making. That goes to the sympathy and the care and all of that. And don't you care about those people? If, you know, we got people do A, B, C, or D. Mine has nothing to do with that. I'm saying I care about them. Put them over there in your accountability. I care. I'm saying leave the drug court where it is. It has nothing to do about my caring and not caring for people. That's kind of couch me as being a person that don't care. And that ain't what I just said standing up here, my reasoning for it. And it's not. So don't paint me no picture like I don't care about people. That's why I'm up here.
I didn't say that, Senator.
Oh, you said it sounds like you saying so-and-so, so-and-so, and so. And I mean, you have already labeled me in a negative light, and by saying it sounds, you made a determination of what I'm saying that it sounds like to the negative about maybe not wanting to help those people, something like that. When you say that, I mean, that's the way you couched it. Whether you intentionally meant it to mean that, that's the way it was couched.
Senator, I'm just saying.
So I'm defending against what you're saying by clearly saying that I helped create this. This was before I was a lawyer. I helped create it. Did the leg work, part of it. I didn't do all of it, but I did a whole lot of it, okay? So no, it's dear to me. I labeled into helping create this. Just for the record, if we want to start talking about things that we put together with the help of this legislative body, because you can't do nothing by yourself in this body, everybody has to help you in some shape, form, or fashion. The Sentencing Commission was created. I sponsored that bill for uniformity in sentencing in this state. So I can appreciate what you're saying, okay? In fact, Judge Proud was the Attorney General at the time. We worked together hand in hand, establishing the Sentencing Commission. So yes, I understand what you're saying, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I think we just have a disagreement on the appropriate mechanism here, because I see it as a drug court is a type of accountability court, and we've got the umbrella that has all of these, and that is one of them, just like the others that are out there. So some judges are doing a theft court in their districts. So all of these would be types of accountability courts, and I don't think this takes away from anything that's existing. It just adds to. But it streamlines it and just has a place for all of it to be listed.
If we had $1 right now, and somebody gave me $1, and then they walked back up here and said that you got to share that dollar in equal portions with the senator who's at the mic now and with this senator who walking across here now. That's going to diminish the value of the amount of the money that I have. If we throw all them over there, then money that drug court gets, now these folks gonna get their hand on it to play with it. No, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna diminish drug court. It's gonna take the money away from them because now all of them in one pot. And so they can use it out of that pot and move it over here to the theft court over there. No, I don't want to do that. That's what I'm telling you. We got enough problems over there with the people in the drug court and doing that. We just had a bill up here that said that if they don't have one in an area, then I think they can use some other courts or something we were saying right there. So that's what I'm saying now. I don't want to do that. And I've tried to straighten the reasons why. You know, so that's where my concern comes.
I will get you an answer on that about the funding. I mean, certainly, since they're all types of accountability courts under the bill, we can talk with the budget chairman about maintaining funding for drug courts. But my understanding is, I just got a text back that no funding is going to be changed. No funding is going to be pulled from drug courts. That's not.
How are they going to guarantee that if they in statute? That nice folks saying that kind of stuff, but as soon as you move, that's just like you. If you were the person that was going to implement what you just said, let me tell you something. I believe you. But somebody gonna come in after you when you get tired of doing that and move to something else. They have no commitment to do that. So if it's not in statute, then it's no guarantee that that's gonna happen.
I would say, Senator, that we would have to get a commitment from the budget chairman on that.
But they ain't gonna always be the budget chair. That's what I keep getting back to. These would, but when they leave, the other one ain't nowhere they made a commitment, and they ain't finna pick up somebody else's commitment just because they committed. It don't go that. I wish it went that way, but it don't go that way.
I'm trying to. Can you help me understand? I'm trying to understand your point here. I would say
you don't understand. I done stood up here talking about 15. You ain't understood nothing I said. I've done a poor job of communicating to you. Well, if you hadn't understood what I've been trying to say up here.
Just about the funding, I have a question. So let's say that we did list drug courts separately from mental health and veterans courts.
It's already separate.
How would that, the budget chairman can still, make different amounts for different courts. So I don't understand how this bill.
It's not the budget chair. I'm sorry, go on. I cut you off. I apologize.
No, I'm just saying I don't understand how this bill, that's a funding issue. I don't understand how this bill deals with that. So please enlighten me.
Okay, look, in this budget, I'm just assuming that we have a line item dealing with drug court. Or we either send all this money to the department and it has been established in that item what is drug court money. Now, what you're getting ready to do now is create another line item that's called accountability court. And in that line item, it's like the trough. You ever had some pigs? They be at the trough, okay? Different trough for each pig. That pig can draw from his trough or her trough much as they want to. Now, you done put two pigs in the same spot, and two of them are drawing from the trough. So now the one that had the trough to themselves, they're only gonna get half of what the trough is, because you got them drawing. Now, do you not understand what I'm trying to say?
I
the
do.
agencies are like the pigs.
I do.
They little pigs. So they're gonna be eating from the troughs. One trough is what you just said. Okay, and when they eat from the one trough, that means it's gonna lack over here because now everybody getting a third for three of them from the trough. Drug court got the whole trough.
I got it.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't want that trough diminished by these others. You throwing them all over here and these other folks under the sake of some unified name, and then they draw from the funding and from the program and diminish. It's rolling too. Well, we probably got this program being supervised over here, I guess, by the courts. Now who this czar we gonna end up putting over here over the accountability program, they gonna be the ones who doing it. And then, no, I mean, it's working fine under the courts right now.
I got a solution for you, Senator. What if we just put a simple amendment on this bill that says that drug courts should be funded in the budget by a separate line item than other accountability courts? That addresses everything that you're concerned about.
Well, I say that again.
Let's just put an amendment in the bill that drug courts will be funded on a separate line item in the budget from other accountability courts. That accomplishes everything you want.
That's half of it. All they're gonna do is just go in and take the money and give them a third of what they gave them. I mean, yeah, look, let me say this to you. I thank the Lord for this. I thank my colleagues for this. Okay, what I'm getting ready to say. So I want to know that I don't take it lightly. I thank them. But I've been on the budget committee every day I've been in here. I know what's gonna happen. See, I'm one of them kind of folk. I done seen it. You know, I've seen it. So that doesn't relieve me and makes me feel good that ain't gonna happen just by that language. I mean, I know you're trying to help me. You're trying to get us where we're going. So I appreciate that. But that's a feel good. You didn't intend it that way. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna be straight with you. You did not intend it. I don't think you did. But that's a feel good thing. I don't know. I ain't trying to feel good. I'm trying to make sure the drug court stay good. See the difference? Feel good, stay good. That's what I'm trying to do.
While the colleagues across the way are talking, let me summarize some of the things that this bill will do. Accountability courts provide trial judges with options to hold nonviolent criminal offenders, we're talking about only nonviolent offenders here, accountable for the behavior other than sending the defendant to prison. The DA must agree for any nonviolent criminal offender to be diverted from prison to a trial judge-run accountability court. The courts use evidence-based programs.
So what now?
All right, go ahead, Senator. I just was killing some time.
Well, I tell you what. Let's do this. Let's do this. Get that amendment, what you just said, and then I got an amendment. Okay? Let's pass them amendments, and then you do what you need to do. Okay? Now I'm gonna tell you what my amendment does. Okay? My amendment, it says replace line 41 on page 2 with the following. The Honorable Pete Johnson, Alabama Accountability Court Act. I'm naming it after Judge Pete Johnson. You got any problem with that?
I don't. I don't have a problem at all. I think that's a great amendment.
Okay. So, okay. The man, he was.
Going on, talking about the bill while these folks are working over here. Evidence-based programs with individualized evidence-based treatment, weekly supervision, drug testing, and social services, which will reduce crime while holding the offender accountable for their actions. You got your amendment ready? Yeah. All right.
All right. Secretary Reed received the amendment, or hold on. We're on an amendment right now.
Can we adopt it, Senator?
Amendment due.
This is the one, mental health and the municipalities that I explained to you earlier. I've got a copy here if you'd like one.
Yeah, now you got to come back with another one. If we're not ready, we might need to, after we get through with this one, we might need Carol to call the chair. The other one is what you said about the funding.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a different section than that, so I don't see any conflict.
Coming on that one?
In terms of it fitting, yes.
Yeah, but if that one that doesn't deal with the money though.
This one deals with mental health certified mental health professionals, evidence-based practices, and then it deals with allowing municipalities to transfer offenders for a diversion.
Yeah, no problem with that.
Okay.
No problem with that.
Can we go ahead and adopt that? Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. I'll ask for the previous roll if there are no objections.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. Senator Jones' amendment's adopted. All right, Senator
Mr. President.
Smitherman.
I have
All right.
amendment.
Secretary Reed, leave the amendment, please.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Smitherman. Replace line 41 on page 2 with the following. Honorable Pete Johnson, Alabama Accountability Court Act.
Mr. President.
Senator Smitherman.
Move for adoption amendment. 9% use previous roll.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Strawbritton. Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Smitherman amendment is adopted.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Smitherman.
What about may I be recognized?
Sure.
Okay. What about the one you said about them being fund and separate as a line item?
I can consult with the budget chairman. We can draw that up if we need to and put it in here.
Yeah, we ain't trying to get them putting more money in there than you put. We just want to make sure they get what they're supposed to get. No, this is what you're giving already. We just don't want to take them from them. That all right? Okay. Oh, you really messed me up.
All right. Do you want me to hold the floor and you get that drawn up real quick, or you prefer me to carry it over and to call the chair?
If you'll Carol, call the chair, and if you can get it drawn up, we roll when you get ready to roll.
All right. I'll make a motion. We carry it over to call the chair.
All right. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. All right. Senate Bill 200 is carried over. Call the chair. Thank you, Senator Jones. Secretary, call the next bill, please.
On page 37 of the calendar, House Bill number 159 by Representative Lovern regarding the Alabama Space Science Exhibit Commission. VR pending.
Mr. President, I move adoption of the BR using the previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 37 of the calendar, House Bill number 159 by Representative Lovern regarding the Space Science Exhibit Commission.
Senator Orr.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has numerous technical changes to the statute that was passed in the 1965. That being said, I'd move third reading using the previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. House Bill 159 passes. Thank you, Senator Orr. Secretary, call the next bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 106 by Senator Smitherman and others regarding small estates. BR pending.
Mr. President, move for adoption of BIR and absent use previous rule.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
30 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 106 by Senator Smitherman and others regarding small estates.
Senator, I'm going to explain just a little bit about it, and then I'm going to yield to Senator Gavan. This is revising the Alabama Small Estate Act. Presently, the Alabama Small Estate Act, Division 10 of Article 18 of Chapter 2 of Title 43 allows the surviving spouse or other distributees of a decedent who owns no real property at the time of death to receive in a summary fashion the decedent's personal property, provided that the value of this personally is not in excess of $25,000, or such adjustments to that amount as made on an annual basis by the state finance director based on changes in the Consumer Price Index. The revised Alabama Small Estates Act would raise the threshold among distributors to a surviving spouse or other distributors to the sum as adjusted from time to time based on the Consumer Price Index formula set forth in Alabama Code 43-8-116 of the Homestead Allowance under Alabama Code 43-8-110. The exempt property under Alabama Code 43-8-111 and the family allowance under Alabama Code 43-8-112 and 43-8-113. Presently, that sum is $47,000. Additionally, the revised Alabama Small Estate Act would save parties and judges valuable time by simplifying both the process of distributing a small estate and the proceeds of claiming exemptions and allowances in connection with the small estate. Expedites the summary distribution process by excluding common law spouses and distributees on a non-self-proven will from being entitled to a summary distribution as such under the Act. 3, provides the following clear priority list of who is entitled to summary distribution of a small estate. After the claim exemptions and allowances are paid, and all funeral expenses and other claims are either paid or arranged for payment out of the estate of the decedent, the remainder of the small estate shall be distributed to the surviving non-common law spouse. If there is no surviving non-common law spouse, then the remainder of the small estate shall be distributed per the terms of the self-proven will of the decedent. In the event that there is no self-proven will, or if the self-proven will fails to dispose of all of the small estate, the remainder of the small estate will pass according to the Alabama Decedent and Distribution Statute. Improve the readability of the Alabama Small Estates Act by removing definitions for the term devise, distributee, and heirs, and replacing them with commonly used terminology. 4, provides the following clear priority list of who is entitled to summary distribution of a small estate. After the claim exemptions and allowances are paid, and all funeral expenses and other claims are either paid or arranged for payment out of the estate of the decedent, the remainder of the small estate shall be distributed to the surviving non-common law spouse. If there is no surviving non-common law spouse, then the remainder of the small estate shall be distributed per the terms of the self-proven will of the decedent. In the event that there is no self-proven will, or if the self-proven will fails to dispose of all of the small estate, the remainder of the small estate will pass according to the Alabama Decedent and Distribution Statute. Improve the readability of the Alabama Small Estates Act by removing definitions for the term devise, distributee, and heirs, and replacing them with commonly used terminology. Mr. President, at this time, I'm going to yield to Senator Gavan.
All right, Senator Gavan.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Senator, there were two concerns I had when I first looked at this bill, and I visited with you about both of them. One was, in the one small estate that I handled, one of the issues we had was we found out about, or my clients found out about a bank account that was there, and the whole question was how much was in that bank account. The whole purpose of the probate, or in this case, the small administration of a small estate, was to get that bank account, but we didn't have a statement. And so we need to work forward to try to find a way where the personal representative, or we can maybe, one idea I've got is maybe a durable power of attorney that extends beyond death for a limited fiduciary capacity to get information, not to change anything, not to transfer anything, but to get information. This is something I think we've got to work on. I don't think I wanted to try to work on this bill, but I think it's too complex to try to work on this bill. They want to slow your bill down, so I'm passing on that one, if you will. But the other thing, and I think I hope this is a friendly amendment, is that this scenario would penalize a child who was a minor child who was not a child of the surviving spouse. And so I would like to offer an amendment that would clarify that those children basically wouldn't be left out.
And Senator, you've done it as being a learned attorney of the law. You made the case and proved it quite well to me related to that issue, and I accept that as a very friendly amendment, and it's going to make it a whole lot better for many people out there that has this problem. So,
well, thank you.
I fully support it, and ask everybody to vote for it.
So, Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to offer an amendment.
All right, Secretary Reed received the amendment.
Amendment to Senate Bill number 106 by Senator Gavan. Replace line 62 on page 3 with the following.
So at this time, I would move adoption of the amendment using the previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator, for
32 ayes, 0 nays. Senator Gavan amendment's adopted. All right, Senators. What now?
Yeah.
Or you want to speak on this bill? Okay. All right, Senator Smitherman.
If there no other questions or anything, I move final pass as amended. Ask unanimous consent to use the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
Thirty-three ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 106 passes as amended. Thank you, Senator Smitherman and Senator Gavan. All right, Senator Williams.
Yes, having voted on the prevailing side on 156, I'd like to have it reconsidered.
All right, motion to reconsider 156. All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chasteen. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
All right, 18 ayes, 7 nays. The motion to reconsider passes. So now we're on Senate Bill.
Mr. President,
Hold on one second. Secretary calls Senate Bill 156.
On page 12 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 156 by Senator Barfoot relating to sentencing.
Mr. President, I'd move for adoption, final passage of SB 156 as amended using previous roll.
All right, any objection to using previous roll? All right, Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot.
Aye.
Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
All right, 17 ayes, 8 nays. Senate Bill 156 passes. Thanks, Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, members.
All right. All right, Secretary, call the next bill.
Page 14 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 133 by Senator Sessions and others regarding juvenile court. BR pending.
Mr. President,
Senator Sessions.
Motion BIR, we need a new roll as for the long roll.
Secretary, call the long roll.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Allen. Mr. Barfoot. Mr. Beasley. Mr. Bell. Mr. Butler. Mr. Carnley. Mr. Chambliss. Mr. Chastain. Ms. Coleman. Ms. Coleman Madison. Mr. Elliott. Ms. Figures. Mr. Gavan. Mr. Gudger. Mr. Hatcher. Mr. Hovey. Mr. Jones. Mr. Kelly. Mr. Kitchens. Mr. Livingston. Mr. Melson. Mr. Orr. Mr. Price. Mr. Roberts. Mr. Sessions. Mr. Shelnut. Mr. Singleton. Mr. Smithman. Mr. Stewart. Mr. Stutz. Mr. Wagner. Ms. Weaver. Mr. Williams.
28 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 14 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 133 by Senator Sessions and others relating to juvenile courts.
Senator Sessions.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under existing law, a juvenile court judge may notify local superintendent if a violent criminal is being sent back to school. This just says that they will notify them. Anybody has any question?
Question.
All right, Senator Singleton.
So this is said that it will notify them in public. What does it do for the private schools?
It has to notify that principal. Same. This basically.
Is it may or shall?
Shall. They'll have to
both of them the same. I thought pieces of this legislation once gave one more weight than the other. That.
Well.
Oh, I know what.
It goes
wrong.
to the superintendent in the public.
No,
it goes to the principal in the private.
Let me just tell you where I was. I was on RSOs.
Okay, no.
On those officers.
No.
We must first do public schools, and then we may supply sheriff officers and whatever with to private schools.
All right.
After public schools has been, I'm with you.
Gotcha.
Wrong bill.
All right, boss. With that, I'd move for final passage using previous roll without objection.
Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
Twenty-nine ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 133 passes. Thanks, Senator Sessions. Secretary, call the next bill.
Page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill 158 by Senator Barfoot regarding driver's license. BR pending.
Mr. President, move for adoption of the BIR.
We carried it.
Mr. President, move for passage of, move for adoption of the BIR SB 158 using previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The BR is adopted. Secretary, call the bill.
On page 9 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 158 by Senator Barfoot regarding driver's licenses.
All right, Senator Barfoot.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me, got the wrong red file here. I think I wasn't specific about which one I needed. This bill involves foreign driver's licenses. Give me 1 second, Mr. President. The necessity of this bill is because of the confusion that we see in the polling places. If a person becomes a naturalized citizen but is still in the process or still possesses a foreign national driver's license, there's no requirement, and they must update their license until the expiration date, which could be 5 years in the future. Also, if a recent naturalized citizen registered to vote uses his or her Social Security card, since they can't register to vote using a foreign national license, they may go to the polling location to vote only having a foreign national license. Poll workers sometimes could be confused seeing a license that clearly states a person is not a citizen and has no way to verify citizenship with the federal government because they do not provide a list of recently naturalized citizens to the state or counties. So they may end up forcing a legal citizen to vote provisionally because of the chance of them not being legally able to vote. The point of it is that when somebody has a foreign national driver's license and they show up at the poll, they can be a citizen of the United States and have every right to vote. But whenever they show that ID that says foreign national license, it creates confusion with the poll workers. We want every Alabamian to have confidence that only legal citizens are voting in our election, and we want those legal citizens to have every opportunity to vote without casting doubt or dispersion on them because of a foreign national driver's license. I know my colleague across the way has some comments regarding the bill itself.
Yes, Mr. President, if the gentleman would indulge. I hear where you're going with this bill, and rightfully so. We want everybody to have that right to vote, to be able to do it. One of my problems that I do have here is that in the state of Alabama, we will issue that foreign driver's license, right? In Alabama, that identification.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
We will issue that identification here in Alabama.
The foreign national license.
Yes.
Yeah, let me just address that real quick because I said something in committee that was not true. It was not that I had that I attempted to say something that wasn't, but I think I talked to Senator Coleman Madison. She had a question in committee about what do those licenses look like, right? And I said, well, it depends on which country that individual may have come from. That's not the case.
That's the truth, right.
It is an Alabama-looking license, as I understand it. So I wanted to clear that up. I did with Senator Coleman Madison after that committee hearing, so I wanted everybody to hear that. That was not said intentionally. It was just misinformation. I didn't have the correct facts, so I wanted to clear that up. But you're right. It is an Alabama-issued license that has either the word or notation on there that's a foreign national driver's license. Though.
And this is my issue. We issued it in Alabama as a legal document. A person can go out and get a work permit. They can file a corporation with it. They can go get, do other things, set up a bank account with it, whatever it is that they need to do with it. But now we don't want to accept that for the purpose of voting. And when I was talking to members from the Secretary of State's office today, it seemed to have been only possibly one incident that they could talk to me about, and that was possibly, allegedly, may have been with an elderly person to whom may have gotten confused, okay? My question to them at this time was it the poll worker who then made that person go and vote provisionally, or was it an inspector, someone who was controlling and ahead of it, who would have said, then they could vote with this because they could be a national citizen. And that's something in the state. Now we want to say, well, we have issued, while it's good for everything else, that is not good for voting. Under the Harvard Act, under the Help America Vote Act, once we put that back into place back in the early 2000s, you could vote with a light bill, a gas bill, something that didn't even have a picture on it. And Alabama also has a voter's ID, or you could do it with a valid Alabama's driver's license, okay? So we know who these citizens are. And so that's one of my problems with this bill. And I would like to, and I'm gonna ask respectfully that if we could carry this over, I don't care if you carry it over to call it chair. because I want to talk some more with the Secretary of State. We started this conversation earlier just before coming in today. I want to kind of complete those conversations, get me a better understanding of where they're going with this. How do we make it work? Because I don't want us to continue to change some just because of one somebody. And that could be avoided, because just as well as we could say, don't accept this license, we could do training to tell them to accept it. Okay? The same thing. And so I just want to make sure where we're going, making sure that we're not denying people the right to vote, because it sounds, on the surface, you're right. You will be trying to give everybody that right to vote. But I can see it at some point, it could be used for something bad also in the field. And I want to make sure that when we do this, that even if a person is at a polling place, that they appeal to the person at the highest level to let them make that call versus a poll worker making that call and giving these persons a provisional ballot without the chief inspector or someone else making that call. And I just want to talk to them a little bit more about that kind of a thing before we actually pass this, so I can feel comfortable in where it's going.
Understand, and hear my colleague, hear your concerns with that. Mr. President, I'd move to carry over SB 158 to the call of the chair.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senate Bill 158 is carried over. Call the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
President.
Secretary,
Mr. President?
Yes.
I'll be recognized.
You're recognized.
I would ask this time that we call up SB 200, which is at the call of the chair.
All right, Secretary, call up SB 200.
That's the...
On page 52 of the calendar, Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Jones and others regarding drug courts.
Mr. President, I have an amendment.
All right, Secretary, read and receive the amendment. Amendment to Senate Bill number 200 by Senator Jones. Replace line 633 on page 23 with the following. Section 2, for the purposes of the Annual General Fund Budget Act, drug courts shall be funded as a separate line item. Replace line 635 on page 23 with the following.
All right, Mr. President, do we have a good roll? Okay, I'd move to... All right, move to adopt the amendment using the previous roll without objection.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton, Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. The Senator Jones amendment number 2 is adopted. Senator Jones.
Mr. President, there are no other questions at this time. I'd move for final passage using the previous roll.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered.
Mr. Albritton. Mr. Williams.
29 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 200 passes. Thank you, Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members.
All right, Senator Beasley.
President, I be recognized.
Senator Beasley.
Senate joint resolution.
All right, any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Secretary, read and receive the, I didn't hear, he said joint resolution. Okay.
Senate joint.
Senate Joint Resolution number 41 by Senator Beasley, commending John F. Smith III for his many professional accomplishments.
Mr. President, I move final passage of the SJR.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Resolution's adopted. Thank you, Senator Beasley.
Thank you, members.
Mr. President.
Senator Gudger.
Thank you. I believe that is all that we have for the business today, ladies and gentlemen of the Alabama State Senate. So with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn until 3 p.m. on Wednesday, March 19th.
All right, heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned.